and back in 1904, 5, and 6, will tell you what groceries was costing at that time. Gas was 20 cents a gallon. And you could get a bushel of apples for 6 cents, or a half a bushel for $3. In the front of these ledgers, it's got the names of all people that he had to come to the store. And about everything is charged, and they come back later and pay for it when he gets the money, because there wasn't no money around that he had. That nobody had jobs and nothing back in. What I'll do is pass these ledgers, and y'all can just kind of look at them as we talk on. Which store? The Connor, out there, right there, the store where this is at is right there by a driveway where go down to Guzzo's and that white building there. That's where these ledgers, where he run his store there before he moved out on 220 where the market's at. And see, when it changed the road, he had to move his, build another market out there on 220. But these are, of course, the airport was the post office there, and that was a big support of his store, because to have income to be able to keep his store open. Y'all start one right here and start one on the other side. I've got 4 of them there. Yeah. Y'all just got up in the front part of the page. There are names of the people that comes through the store and charges everything. And a lot of them would work for my great uncle on the farm to make a little money to pay on their food meals.
Where's the dates? Where's the
Are the dates on here, Carson?
So yeah, it'll be somewhere along on there. That's 1909, 4, 9, 6, and 7, 8, I think. Wow. 3 years.
It's around 19, maybe that's.
Oh, yeah, 1910, yeah. Thank you.
So I know it'll be a lot of it. We won't get to later for a while. And this is my great uncle where he had the stores. This is his family, and he was his wife and Uncle Lump and his 2 daughters, and Clem were married May Connor. I don't know if anybody ever knows run the store out there. And y'all can pass around and look at it.
Carson, what date would this be?
I don't know. They come out of the house where my house is. That's where they used to live. That caught a fire and burned, and then I built a house there. So I guess it's back in the 40s, sometime when that picture was made. That is, while y'all looking at all that picture, we'll go on with where I was born. I was born in actually Lewis Gale Hospital, but we actually were Bent Mountain, but we lived in Floyd County. I don't know if anybody knows where Dingle Bartlett lives, the King Brothers Road. You follow that down about the end there is where I was raised at. And we lived in the house that my grandma had when they remodeled the house when my mom and dad got married, and was where the slaves lived in. And they lived in that house for 2 years, and my grandma on my mama's side, where she lived in the brick house, she had a hemorrhage and died, and we moved into the big house where lived my granddaddy. And he liked to trade horses back in and cattle and stuff, and he kept cattle on the farm to make money to live on, and he would go around to see neighbors or somebody that had. See, everybody didn't farm with horses. They had to have that to do the plowing, mowing, and everything with the hay and all. And he loved the trades and that stuff. And Valentine Thrash was a place where we lived. It's a house where we lived in. That was my granddaddy's mother and dad's place. And he bought the place when they kind of passed away, and they lived there, and they had an apple orchard, and they had back in it was nothing but Walden apples and red stamens, some wine saps they called it back in, and pippins apples. And what they done, he kept them and he kept cattle to have income. And in the fall of the year, people would come from Stonewall and different places wanting to pick apples because nobody get a little money to have to live through the winter. And they'd have about 15 people would come pick apples. And some of the trees back in was so big that they would pick 50 to 60 bushel of apples per tree. One guy would work a tree maybe for 2 days to pick one tree of apples. And my grandma and mama would, they fix lunch for a lot of them to eat at lunchtime because they didn't, where they was so poor, they didn't have really money on bringing food and stuff to have to eat. They would fix lunch for all of them through the apple season. And they hauled the apples over to Elliston. There was a rail track out where they shipped them out to. They went down, probably not even know where the Sugar Run Mountain is. Goes down below where I lived at, goes over to Shawsville, and that's the way they would go down that road and ship the apples out where the wind. Well, that's the picture I give you of mom. My mama went dead. And so we lived there, and my dad finally bought the place there, and after my grandma passed away, she had hemorrhage passed away, and we moved in with him and lived there, and they had set a bunch of apple trees out when I was a kid. The way they sprayed them, they had a barrel up on a wagon like thing, and pulled it with the horses. One of them would pump it barrel thing to spray the apples, one would drive the horses, and you only spray them about 3 times a year. Going back in, you spray apple trees. What you done at the when the petal fall was, you put a spray on. That was to keep the worms from getting in the apple. And you spray about twice after the apple started growing to keep them from scabbing. And back in, you paid something like 2 cents a bushel to get the apples picked, and you were selling them for about 50 cents a bushel, what you sold the apples for. And one at the other house where my great grandma lived in, of course we lived up the other house. I would slip off. I was about 7 years old and want to go down to my great grandma's house to listen to her tell about when she was a kid, things that how she growed up. She was born out there about the head of the river church or somewhere there where she was born at. And she's talking about her dad went off to war, and they had to take care of the garden. See, back in, you had to raise everything you wanted to eat. She said, can it or ever how it was, and carry you through the winter. And she's talking about her dad left for service, and some of the older people that lived around where the widow woman's people lived, they would help each other out, with the garden or plowing it or have some in it. And she's talking about they had 3 hogs and pigs in the pig pen, and one night they had just got them, hadn't had them for long, and the bear come in and got one of them. So the neighbor, the close neighbor, he come the next day and helped him put a top on the pig pen so that the bear couldn't get into the pig pen. So when time to kill hogs, they come and help them kill hogs. And the house they lived in just had a floor. Back in, all the old houses just had a dirt floor. It didn't have no board floor or nothing. and they had a loft up in the house there, and she said that they killed them hogs and they hang that meat up in the loft like, and that night the bear come and was trying to get in the house. The doors was fixed where they had a thing, a thing that hinged, dropped down inside so nobody could push the doors open on the house. And he dug out under the bottom trying to get it. She said a little kid, she could see where that bear was sticking his paw through and pulling all that dirt out from under the door. But said after she sat down in front of the chair with the shotgun in case he did bust it. And she said that's the thing she really meant, because it was scary to her to see all that. She had one brother. And when I was little, she would be was telling me all that, and I would, like I say, would slip off to go down to her house, and she'd have made a sweet wine. Boy, it was good, and she'd pour me just a little bit of glass. Now, Carson, that's all I'm gonna give you today. And she would, she had a picket fence around the house, and the gates were made out of wire, and the wires would stick down through the bottom of the gate, and I'd have to get the dirt out of it so I could get under that, because the gate was locked, and my mom didn't know that I was down there. But anyway, she figured out she had to come and get me, because I wouldn't know her to get back home. And we had a collie dog, and that collie dog, everywhere I went, that dog went with me. And like Mama said, when I got sleeping or something like that dog would lay down, and I'd lay down in the flanker and lay there and sleep outside on the dog. And the dog had never moved till I woke up. Anyway, everywhere, and I'd slip off and go to the orchard where they was working, and she'd have to come and get me and bring me back to the house, because I wanted to be where the action was, I guess you would say.
What was the dog's name? Dog's name?
You know, I can't. Really, I don't. They probably sold it, but I wasn't old enough to know it really at that time. But anyway, my dad they worked out some kind of deal. It was 3 farms there. It was about over 600 acres in 3 farms, and where my granddaddy lived on, that was where it had the apple orchard on it, and on the other farm had a dairy farm. We built on 2 farms with about 8 or 10 cows to each farm. You had to milk them by hand at that time, and you couldn't have too many, so they split them up between 2 farms. So the people that lived in the house on one of the farms, they took and milked those cows. And as I got older, we started, all them apple trees actually had been set out, so we had to was picking about 18 to 20,000 bushel of apples in the following year, and we'd have to, Martin Brothers and Roanoke, they was hauling them in a tractor trailer to West Virginia, to the cannery up there, and we'd have to load a trailer load every day. And one boy that's helped me, we would take the apple boxes out and spread it out in the orchard when he come back into the trailer, because they dumped them out up at the Inwood when he got on the road, or empties back, and we'd get the empties off the trailer, spread them out through the orchard that the trees had been picked, and we'd start hauling apples and have that trailer loaded by 800 bushels at a time, nights, for him to come in that night to pick the trailer up to go to the Inwood. We'd do 5 trail loads a week, is what we moved. This is about.
Did you have deer back then? Because Glenn, I remember, said you didn't have deer to eat the apples.
No deer. I was probably probably 18 years old the first time I ever seen a deer. I was coming in at home, and the deer went around through the pasture field, and I went and told them, "Look out there! I seen a deer," and that's the first that I'd ever seen. No, it was no deer. It was. Mama said it was turkeys when she was little. It was turkeys, but I don't really think there's any deer then back. Y'all can just kind of skim on and read it, but I don't want them back. You just Y'all watch
There's old engineers. One of those.
And this was a picture of the house that I was raised in, which it is out here right across Frail's house. That's the house that generally made on it. Same way this house was made, but the slaves back when they had slaves back when they built this house, the walls are 12 inches thick. And they done the brick out of what they called the brickyard field to make the brick and build that house. There's a kernel of thrash that lived there, and they had a house outside where the slaves lived in, and done all the cooking and bring it into the main house for the people to eat. And the slaves done all the farming, and because they had to have food to eat in the wintertime too, so they had to raise enough food to feed them through the winter as well as their families. That's one of this.
Hey Carson, what year was that house built?
Probably back in the 17s.
What?
And somebody can go back. This is a picture of Uncle Tom King, and that was my dad there, and that was Ezra. Yeah, Ezra there, and I don't know who this was. That's Preacher King, which is my dad's brother. And I don't know if you remember Marshall Connor when he had the produce place out there where Bogo had. That's him there. They was picking apples there, and you notice all of us got a basket where they pick apples in, a little wood basket. Tom Bartlett lived down next to us. He made those baskets in the wintertime. He had a sawmill, and he would make all that soak up wood to be able to buckle it in and make them baskets, and all the growers around would buy baskets if they needed baskets from him. In the wintertime, he could do that. And they had a sawmill. They had old steam engines that they saw crack up to run the sawmill.
Do you still have any of those baskets left?
Yeah, I got a couple of them.
Do you?
Yeah. Those, yeah, I did on that old store.
Mr. Hamilton handmade baskets.
And this was just a picture of Ezra and my uncle, Preacher, and my dad.
What kind of truck is that?
Preacher.
This was before my time.
1700s.
Yeah, probably 1700. Yeah. Probably was. And my grandma, see, she lived in that big house, of course, she was growing up at. They call it the big house, what they call it, they did. And they had deserters where deserted the war, didn't want to go to the war. They would went over in the roughs there. It's a cave over somewhere or another. Of course, when I was a kid, we tried to find it, we never could find it. But where they stayed at, and they take a sack and put food in it twice a week outside of the house, and they would come and get the food and take it the food there. And they stayed over in that mountains. They said it was about 15 or 20 of them was somewhere in that mountain where they stayed there deserters. They didn't want to go. They didn't want to fight anymore.
Yeah. That's what's famous up here on the mountain.
Yeah. As you got off, I had my brothers. I was the oldest one. I was 12 years between me and Chip, and I think what is remember how many between Wayne? Between him and Wayne, Willard and Wayne. Huh? 18 months between Willie and Wayne, and I had a little daughter. I mean, a sister, but my mama had pneumonia and come on here dying, and she was pre-born, and she stayed in the incubator for over 2 months or something, but she never did grow, do anything. So she finally passed away.
She lived for 10 years.
10 years, yeah, but just a baby. My mama had to take care of him for 10 years.
Ours brother Wayne got killed in Vietnam.
Yeah, I had one brother, he was 18 years old, he was in service when I got out of school. He got killed in Vietnam, but he went over about 8 months, I think, or something like that. He got over to get killed.
Are any of your home places that you're talking about still up? Are they still around? The houses?
The house, yeah. Yep. That picture was took probably, where I gave him was showing it was probably took for a few months.
Oh, no, about 5 years.
About 5 years ago, yep. The houses there, still the other two houses down where the slaves lived in, and my great grandma lived in too. They're there.
It's near Amron's Winery over
Oh.
It's all the way on the floor. And the land that where we had the 3 farms, my granddaddy would tell me when I was a kid, step on this side of the tree, you be in Montgomery County. Step on this side of the tree, you be in Floyd County. Step on the other side, you be in Roanoke County. And he helped survey the counties out back years ago. Because see, when the Thrashes got, they had about 4,000 acres when they way back in, back a long time ago, they had that before. But as I got older, see, we had the apple orchard. We had some guys that worked for us, and we grew vegetables. We had 2 dairies, and small whole vegetables to run up market. Grow beans, corn, and all. And we had round by the Hearst. My uncle drove a school bus, Carson King, out here to come here to the school, bring the kids to school. He would go around Bottom Creek, the Craggs, and down there at the Simpsons. It was a bus, and he would get a bus load at those 2 houses. He'd have to bring them to school and go back and finish his round. And what he done, he had to buy the chassis, and the county put the seat, the bus part of it on where the kids sat in on the bus. And
Sorry, I may have missed this, but when did your family actually move here?
move here.
Mm.
We lived here all our life.
Yeah, but when was the first settler, the first king that got here?
That will be.
Page 1 printout.
Huh?
Page 1 1700.
It's in that printout.
That was it, 1776, it looked like it.
Yep.
Is that it?
Is that Longwood cabin still standing?
Huh?
Is the Longwood house still standing?
I don't know where the house is exactly. Probably toward that. See, the house where we lived in, the separate house out from it, where the slaves lived in and fixed the food, brought into the main house for the family to eat. And that house had carbine lights in it. I don't know if anybody don't know, that's off of DC. It'd be the same as wired, just like you wire for electricity. And that, when we moved in that house, that was what it had. And had a building out from that. They had batteries in there that you would charge them up on. My granddad said, well, on Friday, the lights is getting kind of dim. They would charge the batteries up on Saturday that would carry all week. Had enough batteries in this building to do that. And see, our water comes from a well, but it was pump that. We had a refrigerator, we had stove, but all of them were DC. And when I was about 12 years old when we ran electricity around. So when they changed it, all they had to change was the switch box, the main box for the house, and hook it into it with the wiring that was separated wire on two, portion type thing through the house. So they didn't have to wire their house or nothing for electricity.
How'd you charge the batteries?
I had a gasoline in it with a generator, started up on Greenwood on Saturday morning, and they'd run all, full tank of gas, run all day, not all day, run to the burn house, and then would charge the batteries back up. It had a bunch of batteries, and all tied in the batteries was.
Could you tell us more about the prisoner of war Germans that were up there?
Oh, yeah, before that, showing that picture of my uncle, that's where back when the prisoners come up out of, they was over at Salem at the jail, and they would bring them out to pick apples. And they'd have one person come out with a gun. Of course, I was a small kid then, and they'd stay with them, and I don't think he got paid hardly nothing to pick apples for us at that time too.
Anybody know where, I guess it's Indiana Street is in Salem, where Yokohama's at? Right, if you're driving up Indiana Street, Yokohama's on your right, just past that, you'll get to the railroad tracks right there. There's one single set of tracks. If you look to your left, you'll see a bunch of Quonset huts over there. That was the depot for the German prisoners. They bring them in by rail right there.
Yeah, that's when back when the war was, yeah.
Your last name's King?
Who, mine? Yeah,
You got any kin over in Wythe County?
no.
Bunch
See a
of
difference
kids
there.
That was quick.
See, I don't know what kind of kings that was.
They were nice people. Yeah, orchard out there.
Don't know what kind of kings that was. Now, we was checking around up there. Wallace King, some of the distant king.
Those are the Kings around Rural Retreat had a big orchard, just closed down.
Yeah, I've seen I can remember something else. Now, there's one place up there, like you go on Bristol, that this big farm up there, I bought apples from Golden Release apples from him. He had a cave born, had two heads, and had stuff that had it up on the wall, getting it there in the packing house. That's something I've never seen before, of being that.
Hey, Carson, you talked about one time, I think it was your great-grandfather was using the Civil War, he had left home, right?
Oh, yeah,
Tell us
yeah.
that story.
I didn't really make a comment on it. My grandma, great-grandma, her dad was in the Civil War, and he was gone for 2 years. They didn't know if he was living or died. That's one where I was telling about the pigs when he was 10. And she said, well, they was out there working in the garden. It must have been a long driveway coming up to the house. And she said they seen somebody come walking carrying a gun. Said they what she didn't know, what, somebody gonna hurt them or do something to them. Said they told she got kids, she got them in the house. And after then she seen it was her husband. He had been gone for 2 years. But see, there was no way to get in contact with back to her family or nothing, him or nothing back then. And she said that all of them was crying and carrying on. Said they're glad to see him come back. Any questions or anything else?
I got one comment. Back in the 60s, when I was going in the summer, we got out of school and I was going to Case Spring High School. I worked for Carson's dad, and then we had to go eat at their house. She was a tremendous cook, but we had Carson's dad. We had to go watch wrestling before we could go back to work. So we get to carry around a Lord Lawrence. He done passed away, good friend. It's a wrestling around, so wonder we didn't knock a TV over, but just wanted to tell y'all, it was good times, during that.
Yeah, we was talking about the TV. SL's brother worked for the radio place in Roanoke, and when TV first come out, he brought a TV up there and put it up at the antenna outside there, and it come on at 5 o'clock in the evening and go off at 11 o'clock. All our neighbors around there come in every night to watch TV till it went off, be about 8 or 10 people. But anything on it was good. That you see, because it's stuff you hadn't seen, or you just hear stuff. And they would, and it'd be like kind of like going to the theater. You know how they have it continuous, something other happens right at the end of this show right now, continue carried on to the next day or the next week or something. That was where they would every night something would have a Western thing or something that happened right at the end. And they go, "We be all right if we come back tomorrow night and see what
They always did a national anthem, and when the TV went off,
Yeah, that's what it did. I get the Bullhorn store out there, it's about the next one got TV, I reckon.
How many of your family do you have here?
Huh?
How many of your family are here?
Oh, mine?
Stand up.
Everybody stand up.
Everybody stand up. It's a king.
Stand up.
2 of them right there. Grandson, my son-in-law.
Oh, wow.
I think that's my wife right there.
You don't have to do the dishes.
Carson, I'll never forget you telling us when you and Willie were little, and y'all were spraying the trees with DDT.
Yeah.
DDT.
DDT.
Well, what y'all do? Y'all spraying
We
each other?
spray each other. See, you spray with a hose. You had to spray the hose. You had to got the sprayer that had the blower on, and you have to go around the tree, and you'd always somewhere or another. He'd be around one side, or I would. When it come around, it's like there. He'd have to hit me with it, or I'd hit him with that.
Still alive and healthy.
How long you and your wife been married?
Oh, well, let me tell you that now. How many in here that is know that 50 years ago what you done on that date? That day? Of course, my love you, my probably not old enough to know that, but that was the day I got married.
Hey, Carson.
50 years?
Actually, you got married in 1963, 60 years. 63 this weekend, matter of fact.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how you met her?
Well, I was talking about 50. Yeah, that's right. You right. I messed up first.
Can you tell us how you met her?
Yeah. I was out of school then, and they lived over where they built them houses. You know, right over the golf course there. Back at the end of that road, that's where she lived.
Stonebridge.
That's where she lived in, and her and her sister and her brother would go to El Tenedor to dance. They had that up there every Saturday night, so that's where I met her at there.
Fred Vest's old cabin? Fred Vest's place?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that's where they lived at. They have apple orchard over there. It was apple orchards everywhere up here. I mean, it was apple orchards.
Somebody asked about the Longwood house. I suspect it was on Fortune Bridge Road because it was Andrew Lewis family, and Andrew Lewis is buried over there.
That cemetery right over there. Right?
Yeah.
The colonel or the general?
The son.
Oh, the son.
Yeah. And in Charlottesville, there was a big house called the White House, and it was the King family, so I just wondered if it wasn't some of Carson's ancestors.
Well, it probably was.
Up the holler.
Yeah. That ladder, yeah, was where it was. And if we had deep snows, you'd have to take a horse and have a V-shaped thing, take the horses to clean the road out over to where, I don't know if y'all know where to Dingle Barn or King Brothers Road, because the state, they would never scrape a road back in. We'd have to scrape that first out. And there one winter, we had every Friday for 6 weeks, we'd have a snow, about a foot of snow. You clean right, the wind drifts. Well, through the straightaway out there, it had drifts. You got down where just one lane through the straightaways, and that snow was big. But we ain't never had nothing like it in years.
Is that the year they made a tunnel?
Yeah,
To cross the straightaway?
Yeah.
They go through the tunnel?
Tunnel, have kind of a tunnel, had to go on. The drifts as high as the power lines through there.
I haven't got any this year.
Oh, when you milk cows,
There's that storm.
you'd have to dump.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to dump the milk out. You could, milk truck couldn't run, you just had to end up dumping milk out. Anyway, talking about, when she's saying about the dairy thing, I played basketball and SL did too, as our neighbor, we and him was good buddies. I don't know if you know him, he lived where the Gearharts lives at now, right out here. And he ended up shooting himself. I don't know, a lot of you probably don't remember, but anyway. And we had a game in Charlottesville, and we was milking about 30 cows at that time, so he's helping me get done milking so we could get on Charlottesville to play basketball that night. And so it got right getting down there, and I think there's 4 cows in line to get in the stanchions, hold 14 cows. And I said, we got to milk these cows. They didn't know what, they was in the office working in the office at that time. And he said he'll know because he'll check to see how much milk you got, how many cans they got. If you don't, he'll know it. He said, I'll take care of that. You just go ahead and get these cows out. So went on the next morning, and he said, did y'all milk all them cows last night? I said, yeah. He said, well, I wish y'all would do it that way, that fast all the time. and so about when the milk truck come back, or can back, it had water in it. Oh, God. And of course, my butt come out and get busted over that.
Carson, tell us about that time y'all put a wagon up on a barn.
Oh, yeah. It's down there, go to, up over to the dollar store, turn on the road, go over just a little ways. It's the old barn on the right hand, the white house, the vacant house there, and that's where one of my granddaddy's brothers lived at. And I used to stay with them. See, I went to Benton Mountain School through 4th grade, and I went to start going to Czech school. And I was done, I guess I was last year in school, I guess it was. A bunch of us boys got together, and he had a horse wagon sitting there in the lot there where the barn was. So on Halloween night, we took that wagon apart and had ropes and pulled it up and put that wagon up on top of the V shape of the barn and put it back together. And that was the talk of the thing. They can't figure out how the world could pick that wagon up and have it on that roof. As far as I know, that I don't know what happened. Maybe Rodgers fell up or set up or he never did try to get it down. Even matter of fact, Full Press back then, I think they have an article in that one how that thing got up on the roof.
Did you ever get to church anywhere?
Yeah,
Was there a church?
Christo Church.
Where was that?
That was right. Be on County Line Road, go all the way in before you get to the fork, past the forks, the road, just after you pass there, all the way up. Let's say some of the church house. But it's where we went. And another church was the school for my mom went to school was over on the other they go all the way around over there. It was a one room school where when she went to school there. And the teacher, she lived somewhere else, and she lived with us with her mother and dad when she was teaching, and she'd go back home on the weekend. But that's where we go to church at. And well, out here, Christo, down here too, later on. Some boys got, in the summertime, they, of course, in church, you know, it's hot in there anyway, they have all the windows up. And a couple of boys had a hornet's nest and tucked it around and dropped it inside the church. You never seen it scrambling to get out of church. That's the minute everybody's out of church.
Who were the boys?
I wasn't old enough to be that at that time. I'll tell you this about my grandma King, Buck King, and my cousin, and we go over there a lot, and we was over there messing around in the packing house and found some bootleg liquor in there, and chickens was running around out there. And we caught this old rooster, and give him some whiskey, poured a little bit of whiskey down, and he'd get out there and he'd flutter around them hens, you know, and carrying on. He'd get up on the fence, and he'd start dolling up and down, and he'd shake himself up real good and hop back up there again. And he'd do the same thing again. And next day, Grandma says, I don't know what in the world happened to my rooster. Said, I went out to the wood house there to get some wood, and said, he's laying out there dead.
Oh, no.
I guess that's about how we have
I'm sorry, I would love to hear more about all the things you've grown. What's your favorite thing that you've ever grown?
Oh, grown?
Yeah.
Well, I
Anything you
guess I
wanna say
growed
about
everything. See, when I had to market, I growed cabbage, beans, potatoes, tomatoes, cucumbers, squash. Of course, it had apple orchard, and there. I would there right at the last, I would pick. Well, I had people pick beans for them. They would pick about 300 bushel of beans through the season for me. We cut about 2,700 bags of cabbage, you would see, and about 2,500 bushel of potatoes we dig in the winter, in the fall of the year. And we had the market where the building's at now there. We've run that for, gosh, years.
Of course, you have folks that drive from Lynchburg, something about that bent mountain cabbage soil.
Yeah.
Well, we had a lot of vendors, you know, other people that sold or had stores, or somebody that sold at flea market and stuff would come and buy stuff from us to take there and sell the different things. But I didn't move all of it right there at the market.
In riding the school bus, we used to see a potato digger. Was that yours?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We used to see y'all out there digging potatoes when we was riding the school bus.
Yeah, well, at one time, now, when we had the egg farm, we had a harvester, and we would load a tractor trailer load of potatoes a day. We rode over 300 acres back at that time over West Salem, in where a steel mill is. We grow, in the bottom there, we grow potatoes in there.
Did you have any overwintered any crops like that, or is it all starting in the spring, ending in the fall?
Yeah. Yep, you spray the year, you plant some stuff, and try to have it all harvested before a freeze comes. Yeah, my daughters, they know what it is. Pick beans, pull weeds. They both worked in the market. When they got older enough to. Before that, they worked out in the field.
Well, I can't speak for the younger ones. I grew up with Sam. I don't remember her doing much.
I worked mostly in the store.
In the store.
She would work in the store. Christy didn't want to. She wanted to be out in the field.
Carson, what makes the Bend Mountain cabbage so famous? Is it the soil?
Climate.
Climate.
Cool.
Oh.
Cool nights.
Yeah.
I say, Glenn.
Well, that
Black,
soil,
hot
the
soil
soil, I
and-
think, makes them sweeter.
Yeah, it's soil and the climate too up here.
Oh.
Yeah.
When would you start your cabbage?
You set them in, April, about long in April, since you can't plants out.
Grow your own seed from seed.
Yes, used to do that. so, they had a, what was that, what was that, what's the name of that stuff you will, put spray.
Bromide.
Huh?
Bromide.
Bromide, yeah, and, you'd, work up the ground, and you had a little old cedar, you run and put little rows through your, the patch where you're gonna do it in, and you put plastic over that, put the bromide down, caps of it around in there, and you put the plastic down, and you go back, there's a pin, you mash them things down and shoot that stuff out in, and it was deadly stuff. You make sure you didn't get a whiff of that. That'd been the end of your life probably. Yeah. And you leave it on there I'd always leave for a week or so before I take it off. That kills all that weeds, and you wouldn't have no weeds in your cabbage bed. And you pull the cabbage and sell them and take them to the field and sell them back out.
We buy our early plants.
Yeah, real early. Yeah, you buy the plants real early. You want to sell early cabbage.
I got a story to tell a little bit about Carson. So, one of his classmates from high school said Carson was, when he came to farm space, that guy knew produce like nobody else did. I mean, because you think about it, it's generation to generation. And I think that's the livelihood too, it's kept him going to, is always farming, getting up, having a purpose. Some of the things, he's a very humble guy. Carson won't tell you about all the good deeds he does. I have one of our neighbors who lives down the street we live. I know at the end of the farming season, they didn't have a lot of money. Carson would just take care of them, and he still does things like that. And that's the things you don't brag about. You just do it behind the scenes. So I'm very blessed to have him as my father-in-law. I mean, he is a genuine, great guy, very humble. He never said anything bad about anybody. He's never met a stranger. Just a great, great family. And it is their anniversary. We were just talking about this week. They got married. I don't know if it was March 3rd or 5th, but it was 60 years ago, 1963. So it is this weekend. So you didn't.
Well, we would have some people, that didn't have nothing. And a lot of times we just give them stuff, if they come in the market. Because they just couldn't afford to buy it. Which you're thankful you had what you had, you appreciate it, you want to help them out. Okay.
You don't want to say anything about Cole's egg farm?
Well, yeah, I can.
Just to brief, because some people may not know.
Okay, well, that's after we got married.
Well, but some people may not know there used to be an egg farm out here.
Yeah, that's what I know. Anyway, after when I stayed home and worked on the farm, road vegetables, hauled the market too, and worked in the orchard. But then after I got married, things changed. You had to be sure you had some kind of income or steady job, and things changed. So the out here where Jimmy lived in a trailer, Joanne and him, they walked by a little brick house and start down the mountain there. I bought that trailer from them, and where we lived in there, and I started working at the egg farm, delivering eggs for John Skeezy Coles. And so we went on for a while, and we were getting more business. So they wanted to do something to expand. We were going to have to take a big loan out to expand, because we get the Winn-Dixie stores too in a certain area. Lynchburg, a big area, Christiansburg, all around where the Winn-Dixie stores was. So we incorporated, and it's Jimmy, Skeezy, John, and me was the four that owned the egg farm at that time. And the old building over there caught a fire and burned up, and we moved out there in that gray building where the Glens are, where it burnt down. That's where we packed the eggs there for a long time. And after that, we went over there where Coles Road goes in there. Of course, they messed that building up. And we worked out with the government a big loan to build a big packing house there and get, in other words, we were going to have to grow because we get too much business. And we're increasing the chicken houses to building more chicken houses. Jim kind of took care of the chicken house thing, him and Skeezy. And of course, and we got, we were doing Winn-Dixie store. Of course, had back years ago, used to have Colonial stores and A&P stores. We went around, trucks delivered every day, somewhat a certain area, and next day another area, and you had to get them the eggs running. So people in the neighborhood here work there. Jim, your mom worked there, a lot of women worked there in the market. Actually, when we sold out, we had 85 people working. And we was doing that, and we put bullets in, and Skeezy, of course, Skeezy was a smart man. I mean, he had to see it, thinking what's coming down the road, what's going to happen in the near future and stuff. And in the spring of the year, you know, all chickens goes to land, and they quit when wintertime comes, or fall of the year, cold weather comes. And see, in the summertime, it's hard to make any money in the egg business because your feed costs and all, and the price of the egg got so cheap. And what he would do is go on the commodity market and hedge all our eggs at a break even or make a penny or two. If we want to make 1 penny, that was all we hoped we could make on a year on eggs. And that was our salvage of us. He could know what to do. And of course, all the producers, they said, oh, well, that's third year now. Oh, this is going to be a good year. This is going to be a good year. You know, but it never was. It never happened. Always in the summertime it was. And we sold out to Eastside, and when we sold out to them, they come in, and the people we was working for, which we paid them good, and they didn't want to let a lot of them go. I mean, like Lynn English, he was in charge of the houses down on Bottom Creek down there. And see, you go through this thing, you make a lot of mistakes going along the way. Just like the first go around, our mistake, but we didn't have a generator. And then somebody hit a pole down there at the green hole and thought the electricity, they told they had back on about an hour. We lost a whole house of chickens. So we could pay for half a dozen generators. So you kind of realize that the mistakes you make, like say, going along. And when they took over, they wanted to start looking at salary, what he was paying people, and they could get the people they thought cheaper to work there, but they didn't know nothing about the chicken operation. And they would come in there and doing it, and they get in the wintertime we'd clean out the chicken houses, was putting birds in, so that ammonia would come up through them cages and kill the chickens after a certain depth of manure in the bottom of the pit there. And they didn't want to do nothing until they had to do something. They lost a lot of chickens, and when they done it, they wanted to take it out from a farm over there, which and they spread it, just keep covering it up, keep up. And we didn't want to spread none over there. We see by us my brothers having a farm down on the Bottom Creek down there, is out of the way where no houses around, and we could spread if we had to down there in the summertime. And so what they done, they got in trouble with environmental people, got nitrogen in that water, and so that ended up forcing them to get Agro to haul the manure, and they couldn't afford to pay them to haul the manure and make any money. So they had to shut the whole thing down. And well, it's actually going to shut more of the environmental people going to shut them down because they had so much restrictions on, which it was. We had a lot of flies here on that mountain when the chicken houses was there. A lot of people knows that. A lot of flies. But we sprayed every week at the chicken houses around the houses and all, but just couldn't keep them down.
Lois kept the books. At one time, I think in the 80s, they had 145 employees.
Back in, that's when we had them. We had over 2,500 head of brood cows from Pulaski to Bedford on different farms. We had 2 at that time. They got longer than the last.
And you grew potatoes.
We had potatoes. That's right, we grow potatoes too. We grow potatoes and sold to Tom's Potato Chip in Salem over there. And we have grown about 200 potatoes, 200 acres of potatoes, and had a harvester. And the school kids in the evening would work on ride the harvest and do a lot of it because from a health standpoint, just didn't have enough help. load them loose in a trailer and take them down there, and they'd raise the trailer up, dump them off down in, and run them out the bins, and that's the best tater chips you ever tasted. We're come off right out of the cooker, and they'd have it where all that thing crumbled, like, you know, they'd have a screen they'd go through and drop out, and they had plastic bags they put it in. Used when they deliver over there, they give me 3 or 4 bags of that thing, and I bring it back to the egg farm for people, the workers to eat them.
And this friend of mine that I went to school with, Sam Mountcastle, they used to go down there about every day and pick up the old stuff, the stuff they hadn't sold or when they cleaned out machines, and load it up in the back of the truck and take it home and feed it to his cows and his hogs.
Yeah.
And I had a friend that was a manager at the time.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember that big elevator, the back of the trailer on there, just raised up.
Yeah, raised the truck up,
I remember that.
dumped it out, yeah.
Hey,
Y'all
Carson,
know
yeah.
and, mix so much chicken litter with
Oh.
the feet. We might not wanna talk about this.
No, that's all right now. That's all right now, but you couldn't do it now, God. The manure that we was getting out, we grew corn silage and had a pit where we had corn silage in and had a mixer truck where you put the corn silage in and chicken litter and mix it together and feed it to yearling cattle. And to put Wade had a lot over behind the old restaurant. He's frowning over there.
They did it,
And Bill, U-Haul had a place in Salem. They would buy all the beef cattle we'd have a couple hundred head or something to feed it to whales to dispose of the manure. And formaldehyde, it was where like embalming is what you put in the manure to kill all the bacteria in the manure before and run it through, pour it in, and when you mix it up, let the mixer truck mix all that up, feed the cattle. And Bill U-Haul said that was the tenderest and the reddest meat that he had ever seen. They said they got a thing to kind of set the meat down, put pressure on, see how much pressure it is. And he said he never had no meat that was that tender. The places they sold it, they said that was the best meat they'd ever had. So it's real tender. So I guess it's so much nitrogen is what it is. It's so much nitrogen in that manure.
Nitrogen helps the calves grow faster too, doesn't it? Nitrogen helps the calves grow.
Yeah, oh yeah, gosh, yeah. Hey, I was putting on 3 pounds, 4 pounds a day.
When you think back of your life, what era do you think that was the best of times?
Be careful how you answer.
Yeah, I gotta watch that. I gotta watch that now. That's my best time, but I don't know if I need to talk about it. No, I guess the last 2 years of the school, you didn't have a care or worry or nothing. There's always something going off at school, ball games, roller skating every Wednesday night, the Dale Tenor door, and where the old brick building out the road there, that's where everybody met at. There was a restaurant there at that time, and where everybody was around check here. That we meet there, and some of them go bowling, maybe some go to the movie. There's enough of us, it's 4 or 5, or some of them go different places. And but that was, in other words, you had something to do every night. But the hooker was, I had to be home and milk. They had to wait till got the milking done, then I could go. I could stay out all night if I wanted to. I'm still gonna get up at 6 o'clock.
What brick building are you talking about?
Huh?
What brick building you're speaking of?
I said, Stone, where the old Texaco station?
Yeah.
That stuff out there? There, that building right there beside Texaco, that used to be the restaurant there.
Okay.
Back here. Clarence Jackson run that restaurant when I was, I guess about junior school on up, he had that restaurant there. And there's a lot of wheels spin out there too.
When y'all went skating or bowling, did you do that in Roanoke?
No, roller skate, but we wouldn't go bowling in Roanoke. go downtown, to come rolling on skating up. See, we was doing the whip, you know, one here, you know how to get the whole line, and one on the end, gets the kids a heck. And I think if Leffin had a hold of me or something, he let my hand slip off, and the rail out there at the front, and I come back, and that 2-4 rail hit me right here in the chest, and I broke that whole 2-4 rail out. And so that, after that, they kind of put a stop to that, doing that.
We had a drive-in theater.
Yeah, that's right.
Vest drive-in?
Huh?
Vest
drive-in.
Can we
right
get
next
that
to-
back? Can we do that
The
again?
next to the dollar store. The drive-in Vest. See, a lot of them, what they do is go inside, they would get so many, I think so much per person, would it? Pay
That or
per car or something.
Car.
But anyway, I can remember some of them getting the trunk, close the trunk, and when they get in the theater, they get out of the trunk of their car.
When I was a teenager.
That's when you was a teenager. And back in now, first, girls, none of them drove. They never had no cars, no nothing back then. You know, the only way a girl got to go anywhere had to be a boy that would take her or go with her or something like that. We had 2 or 3 in our class when we go into roller skating tonight, gonna be maybe Wednesday night, this is the first, they'd be going around. Have you got anybody to take you skating? Yeah. You say, yeah. They'd keep asking somebody till they could find somebody would come by and get them to go roller skating. Because, like I said, when no girls go to school, they done no driving.
Hey Carson, you talk about one time you drag racing on 221. Tell us what happened.
Yeah. Sam and I was drag racing. We took off at the restaurant, coming out, started down the mountain out there here to the church. And the old road used to go out down right by the church there. And the car sitting there giving the signal to turn in there. I was running, probably both of us running close to 100 miles an hour. And Sammy was able to get his off the road over the other side, but I couldn't. I went in a slide and slid around, and that rolled 5 times, set back over the wheels, and set right over that holler right there where the church was. And so even today, I never knew it. I turned over. I was still sitting there holding that steering wheel. Tommy was with me. He was in the back seat. Of course, we had a little drinking. Anyway, and I said, Tommy, what in the world are you doing in the back seat? Didn't know it. Only thing done is bent the back of the car on the back of it where they busted the back glass out. Lawrence, I went out and got Lawrence, come down to pull it, and somebody called the police or something. By the time Lawrence got it out in the driveway there at the church, the policeman showed up. I can't think of the policeman, but anyway, back to he knew my dad, which was bad. And hooked to it. I thought I just slid, and hit where the slid, the tires, it wore the tread off of the bottom where they're sitting on there. Well, no tread at all left on that tire there. And the police started counting the skid mark. He said, there's one, there's another, there's another. How fast was you going? I said about 50 miles.
What kind of car was it, Carson? What kind of car was it?
52 Chevrolet. Coupe. Anything else anybody want to say?
I have a question.
Huh?
What advice would you give to young people today about leading a happy, successful life?
I didn't quite catch that.
What advice would you give to young people today about leading a happy, successful life?
Well, first thing, stay away from any drug. Of course, we're no drug such thing back in when we had no. I mean, you know, the schools and stuff has changed so from what it was when we were. Everybody in school, we was friends. You know, we socialized. Some, of course, wasn't 32 in our class, but still a small school. Checked everybody. Of course, that's from that's the 7th grade. There, when was that? We had to go to Floyd later. They did in high school. But we didn't, nobody argue. I don't know if anybody, we ever got in a fight or anything. He's all just good friends. I mean, it's, I do have to tell this on S.E. McNeil. He was kind of heavy-set guy, and he thought because he was kind of heavy that the girls didn't like him. We got drinking one time, went down at Paul Simpson's store, went around the curve, right, he said, girls don't like me and I ain't no use to me living. He opened the door, scared me to death. He rolled out of the car over in the side ditch. We thought sure the world would kill him, because a couple more boys were with us too. And tore his breeches and stuff up on it. But he was so scarce, you know. But that's the rest of the time, we didn't have nobody want to fight or nothing. You know, if you got to drink or something, a lot of people get to drink and they want to fight or do something. Of course, now we had that problem at El Tenor off of Shooting Creek. They some come up there, all they do is walk around wanting to fight and go outside. Come on, let's go out fight. Let's go outside and fight. So one night we was up there, Tommy and another one, and went. I can't think of his name, but anyway, started out the door. Tommy, when he walked outside, Tommy busted a beer bottle across his head, with blood running all down, and he was staggering around. Come on, I don't know what I was drinking. Sure, where it's coming. It's getting to me now. He was so drunk he didn't know that he busted the beer bottle. That broke the fuck. Wasn't no fighting, no way. We weren't interested in no fighting. I mean, we was out having a good time.
Y'all treated each other with respect.
Huh?
Y'all treated
Oh,
each
yeah.
other.
We didn't actually. But nowadays, we got their little group, our own drugs and stuff, you know, I mean, and harass different other kids. We never made fun of no kids, nothing in school.
As soon as the kids got old enough, they would put out the work.
Right.
Yeah.
When they were taught to work.
Right, that's true, different day, yeah, work, you gotta work. It's a different world, different things. But like I'm saying, it was funny nowadays, girls are driving just like all boys is. But back then it wasn't, the girls they didn't really know how to drive.
Monica wants to know how old you are.
Tell her to guess. Tell her to guess.
Yes.
Oh, God. Well, if
82.
you were married in 60 years and you're probably married about 20, you'd be about 80.
82.
He just had his birthday
He'll
party.
take it.
Right.
Yeah, I guess.
He's trying to remember.
He's trying to remember from the time I got married. See, I was 22 years old. Sylvia was 15 years old at that time. So now, if you want to do a little changing on your age.
Carson will be 86 in August.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Huh?
Randy just told him.
I said Carson's 86 and Sylvia's 29.
Yeah.
Oh, is that Nate Christie?
She is 19.
19, okay.
The 30th year.
But I guess I've had a lot of health problems when growing up. I mean, got married. I guess maybe she was on too much. I had some ulcers problems, bleeding stomach, and Maalox drank that all the time for that. Crawford, he finally put me on some medicine, but it hadn't even been approved. That took straightened that out. And I've had 4 blockages. It's been operated on 4 times for that. And I guess, but other than that, I'm pretty good health, I reckon. Got sugar problems. I've had that for a long time.
Carson, thank you so much for doing this.
Yes.
I wasn't expecting as many people out here.
The word got out.
Oh, the word got out.